Hey, everybody. How are y'all today? So, welcome back to Best Life Abroad, Not Your Average Travel Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Raquel, and today we are going to be talking about what I wish I knew of budgeting for my life abroad. Okay. So, if you're thinking about moving to another country or imagining a dreamy, carefree lifestyle where you can just be who you are and live your best life, you have come to the right place. So, I am here to share what I wish I knew before I had decided to pack it all up and move abroad for the first time. Okay. So the first time I moved abroad, I had a plan. I am a plan ABC kind of girl. Okay. So I tried to have everything under control. I tried to figure out, okay, what do I need? What will we need? It was myself and my husband. What will we need? What will we possibly want to do? What do we already have? Back in the day, we didn't have all the tools for moving abroad like we do now. So I at least wanted to have enough figured out so that, we have a plan A, plan B, plan C, so that, if something went outside of a plan A, we still had something to fall back on. So I tried to have it all under control, but clearly I did not. Okay. So today I'm going to take you on the journey through my first international move. So the financial lessons that I learned the hard way, and also just some tips so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Okay, so hopefully by the end of this, you will have a better sense of like what you yourself actually need. Now, any people who are like, you don't need nothing, just pack up your stuff and go, lies. I would not recommend that. Anybody who says you need $1 million to have saved before you go also lies. So, you have to figure out what's best for yourself. Now, sorry, I'm a little bit raspy today. So when my husband and I moved to Germany for the first time, we were young. We were a newly married couple. We had, our whole lives ahead of us. So yeah, we were ready. We didn't have really any financial baggage except for stupid student loans. But we didn't have like car payments. My husband is the used car king. He can get you whatever car you want, and he will find it. So we didn't have car payments. I worked in housing throughout graduate school, and then once I became a professional, I still was in housing and residence life. So I had never even paid rent before. We didn't have a mortgage. We didn't have kids then. So we were like, yes, this is the time. Let's go do it. Let's go do all the things. Okay. So once we finally got the opportunity to go, my husband, as you, I'm sure, listened to in episode one, season one, my husband got offered a contract to play football, American football in Germany. So that's what brought us to Germany. So we were like, all right, we're doing this. And I had always wanted to move abroad. So, the opportunity presented itself and we were out. So what I did want in my mind, there was this number of $5,000 in my mind that I had. And I was just like, whatever happens, I want to at least make sure I have $5,000 of cash available. So we have some backup. And I always would recommend having some type of backup funds to whatever funds you think you need. I would also recommend, like, even if it's like, I'm going to keep, I know a flight home is $1,200. So I'm going to keep $1,200 available on this credit card at all times. So should I need to leave, I can at least get back home. So I would always recommend having something available to get you where you need to be should it all hit the fan. Okay. Um, so yeah, so we were going to also again have housing provided through his football team. So we were not going to have a car. We were going to use public transportation. And public transportation in Europe is pretty common. So you can get most places depending on where you live. And we lived in a tiny little village and we still use public transportation. We had to walk a hike to a bus stop. Um, but we still were able to use public transportation. So, we're like, okay, our housing's going to be paid. We pretty much have to pay for food and wherever we want to get to. And he was also getting paid through football. So I figured, this 5Gs can get us lots of places. Um, so what happened was $5,000 sounded like a good sum of money. But it was not. And also, it really depends on where you are going. Like we were in Europe. Europe is not a cheap place. Maybe if you were in Mexico and Costa Rica, where there is a lower cost of living, that 5,000 might have gotten you places, but not in Europe because, we're there, we're with this football team. They want to take us to see different places. So, we were always traveling somewhere, and I am not saying this as a complaint, child. We tore up the cities, okay? So we were always traveling somewhere. We were always going on a weekend trip. But those all cost money, and that's times two, because wherever he was going, I was going too, okay? It was a new place with new food, so we were eating out all the time. It's also a different pace of life. Like we could actually just go chill on a Tuesday afternoon at a cafe and life is good. And we did like every day at some cafe, eating something, drinking something. It was wonderful. So, just a much more relaxed pace of life. So the time that people are like spending eating through lunch, we didn't do that. We frolicked through lunch, and frolicking costs money. So, I think oftentimes when you hear about things to plan for, people don't mention that like you need money for building community. So oftentimes, especially within expat communities, the way that you build community is by going places and doing things together. So it might be like, hey, we're going to meet at this cafe and bring our kids there. Or, hey, we're going to have this Thanksgiving dinner, bring something. Everybody bring a plate or a dish over. Um, But all those things cost money. So, building community, it's not necessarily like, you have to pay to build your community, but oftentimes you have to do things to build community. And I think that's a lot of times what's missing when people think about budgets is you want to build in part of your budget doing stuff. Okay, going to festivals, seeing what holidays are there, seeing what shows. If you are moving to London, you are going to want to go to the West End and see a good Lion King. Okay, because you might be able to afford it there where you could not afford it in New York. So, you just want to think about what is happening and what will I like to be a part of. So we were in Germany then, and Germany is like the land of festivals and days off. Okay. So we were always at a festival. That is what I miss about Germany, other than my lovely German peeps, is the festivals and the good schnitzel, Kässpätzle also, um, Spiegeleier and Bratkartoffeln. Yep. But just like I remember there was a couple that we actually met on a train, and we were just on the train, like minding our business, trying to go somewhere. I think we were coming back from church or going to church or something. And people were just like turning up all around us. And we were just sitting there looking like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Come to find out, it was a holiday. So on the train, everybody has like their bottles of champagne. They're just passing glasses back. And I'm thinking, oh, must all be together. No, sir. They did not know each other. They handed us glasses too. And so, it's like then that same couple was like, they ended up living where we live. We like bump into them at a grocery store and they're like, hey, come over. You can't go to people's house empty-handed, so you got to bring a bottle of wine, bring a dish, bring a dessert. So building community, it takes money. Okay, so you also want to make sure you're building time to go to festivals, day trips, exploring places with new friends. And we were young and excited. We were not about to say no. And I mean, I'm older and excited, and I'm still not going to say no. So every weekend, it was a new castle, a new wine festival, a trip to Munich, my favorite place. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Those experiences were completely priceless. But did that $5,000 go far? Absolutely not, because we spent it all and did all the things. Okay. So also where things got a little bit tricky is we didn't assume. I don't assume when I'm moving abroad. We were told, okay, that once we got abroad, because of the visa that my husband had, I would be able to live there and work there. Just kidding. That did not happen. So I got there and they were like, okay, you have, I don't remember if it was 30 days. It must have been 90 days because you can, with a US passport, I can be in Germany for 90 days, but until I need a visa. So they were like, you are going to have to figure out your working situation and get sponsorship, or you're going to need to go back to the United States without your husband. And so, I wasn't working at the time. And so I was like, that was my grind for like the first 60 days. I don't think I got it until like day 70 something. Because I was like, "Child, I might have to leave you and I love you very much." So I remember like my grind was like, okay, I need to find a job. And so I finally found a job. Our $5,000 was looking real skinny by this point. So, I am an educator, so I started looking for teaching jobs immediately. And I was fortunate to find a position teaching at several of the universities that were where we lived. And so, what I did not know at that time was that English teachers, even if you're teaching for a university, because there are like, language schools like Berlitz and in Lingua, but even if you're teaching for a university, you are considered a self-employed person. So I ended up actually getting a self-employment visa. So what that meant for me was that I was not actually hired by the universities. I was more of a contractor for those universities, meaning I got paid once the job was done. The job was a semester, okay? So for all of them, I got paid once every 5 months, okay? Ciao. So I was trying to like pick up jobs where I would like only teach like one like micro mini course for a minute, just so that I can have like income coming in other than those 5 months. So, you're talking about crash course in budgeting because you are rich when that check comes in, but you must make it last for another 5 months. So it's like, whew, that was some serious learning on the ground. Talk about building the airplane while flying it. That was a very intense time. But we had to figure it out. And then also, like as a self-employed person, I have to pay taxes like I am a business. So not only am I getting this huge lump sum of money, feeling rich for 2 seconds, then I realized I had to take 20% of it and put to the side because I'm going to be having to pay taxes on this. Um, so that also diminishes how much we actually have to spend. So, that really challenged that $5,000 number that I had in my mind. So, what I wish I would have done differently is I wish that one, I wish somebody would have actually told me the real what kind of visas we had. But also, I wish I would have understood better the hidden costs of things. So, you might have like we had housing covered, but transportation didn't just mean transportation in our little village that we lived in. Transportation also meant like, okay, we're in this little town, but we want to go to Stuttgart. That's a train. We want to go to Munich. That's a train. We want to go to Berlin. That's a train. We're trying to go to Paris. That's a flight. And so, what does transportation really mean for you? Are you really not going to travel anywhere other than your little town or village or city where you live? Or are you going to want to turn all the way up? Because we turned all the way up. Okay. And then where you live, also like healthcare. Is healthcare included for you? Do you have to have separate healthcare? Are you under the countries for like countries that have universal healthcare? Are you under that umbrella or are you not because you are not a citizen of that country? So in Germany, we had to have our own separate like international healthcare, which wasn't an astronomical amount of money, but for Germans it was because they were paying pennies and we were paying hundreds. So, like things like that, they really can add up fast. And they're really often the last thing that you think of until you're there and they're like, okay, so in order to get this visa, we need to know that you have health insurance, so you're not on our healthcare system. Um, and then also like if you can I really would recommend not relying on one single income stream. So, like you might have your job and that's amazing. But even for example, like with my last job, my job was attached also to my housing. So if anything happened with my job, that meant I also didn't have a place to live. And so those are really high stakes. That is really a lot of pressure. So like even in Germany, I had like consistent teaching gigs, but I also was like, okay, where can I find some other like smaller things so that if those things don't work or if somebody doesn't want to sign my paperwork, I need to be able to stay in the country. And we were there for almost 5 years. So I had to get that renewed every year. And I remember like one language school was like, we are not signing anything for you because he misunderstood what I needed. And so once he actually decided to sign it, I was like, I don't need that. I just need you to say, I'm working here 20 hours a week. That's it. Um, so yeah, it's possible, or maybe one year somebody wants to sign it, somebody else gets in that position and they're like, no, we're not signing that anymore. So be blessed. So you really want to have a backup plan, whether that's another stream of income, whether that's like maybe you have a two-income household and one can kind of do some freelancing or some side hustles. But you really just want to be as like have your plan A and plan B as much as possible. And then if you can keep stacking up an emergency fund, it really will lower your stress and lower your anxiety because you know that no matter what happens, you can get home and you can maneuver how you want to maneuver. Okay. And also, I would recommend like remembering that like your time abroad is not just to survive. Like you can survive in the United States. We're not moving abroad to survive. We're moving abroad to live our best life. So you really want to make sure that you are budgeting for the fun stuff. Now, the first step I always tell you when it comes to choosing where you want to live abroad is also determining what type of lifestyle you would like to have and what type of money you have. So if you have champagne taste on a Kool-Aid budget, then maybe we're not moving to Europe. Maybe we're moving to Mexico or Costa Rica, where we can go ahead and have that champagne and the Kool-Aid. So, you want to think about like, what type of lifestyle do I want to have? And then also, what countries can I move to get that lifestyle? So that's why when people are like, you don't need anything, I do not agree because I would lose my mind if I move somewhere with nothing. And then also, like, what happens if you get somewhere? I have literally had a student who was studying in China, got to China, got to their Airbnb, and realized then that I guess everybody realized that this person was not, in fact, Chinese, but they were a US student, and then realized that Airbnb, you cannot get an Airbnb in China if you're not Chinese. So she had no place to live. So thankfully, there was another student who did have a place to live from her college. And so she was able to like stay on her couch until she found a place. Hello, what would she have done had that girl not been there? So, you never know what's going to happen when you show up someplace. So, showing up with $20 in your pocket, I never, ever, you will never hear this mouth recommend that. Okay. So, you don't need to have a huge budget, but I think your budget really needs to depend on where you're going and what you're trying to do. Okay. So, we're not moving abroad to survive. We're moving abroad to live our best life, but you also want to be realistic about what are the things that you can afford. Okay. So now I made plenty of mistakes during this time, but I think we also did a few things correctly. So one is I was not afraid to put myself out there. So this visa situation was a beast. But when I tell you, every single place that taught something in the Robbinsburg area knew my face and my name. I tell you that. I networked, I hustled, and I found a way to make it work so that I could stay with my husband in Germany. So, like, I taught at universities. I was teaching at three universities. I was teaching at two language schools. I was teaching English at a law firm. Like when I tell you this girl was hustling, okay? But I also really leaned on like our local community. Like, people, even my husband, he ended up being like running the youth center that was in our little village. And that was because our neighbor like went to the mayor and was like, you need to hire him to run this. And he did. He hired him. So, your community really can be super helpful in what opportunities you're able to get. The law firm I got, I'm pretty sure is because like a neighbor was like, hey, I can't do this. So can you do this? And I was like, I can do it. I will be there tomorrow. So, you really want to do what you need to do in order to make what you want to have happen. And sometimes that is really putting yourself out there, but you have to do what you have to do to get what you want to get. Okay. So I think sometimes, like, especially in the US, we can be so focused on, we're independent, we're doing it ourselves, but that's not necessarily the culture everywhere. And also sometimes it's frowned upon. Like I remember, like I was always taught, like, you don't ask people for stuff. You don't ask them to do extra stuff for you. So like you don't go to people's house and say, oh, can I have that? Oh, can I have that too? Do you have some of this? Mm-mm. You sit there and you say, thank you, no, thank you. That's it. So, for our German mom, she would always ask us for like, you want some cake? You want some coffee? You want some this? You want some of that? And I'd be like, no, thank you. No, thank you. And so my husband was like, I want you to say yes to every single thing that she asks you because she's going to get offended that you're always saying no to everything. And so I did. And she was like, oh, yeah. She was like so happy that I actually was like accepting the help that she was offering me. And it wasn't because I was trying to be mean, not accepting it. I was actually trying to do her a favor, like, girl, you don't have to do anything extra for me. But it was coming across like I wasn't trying to like accept her help. And so I think it's important to just to remember like your local community can be a gem and you can start building relationships, which I did not have. But you can start building relationships with that community now. We have Facebook groups for parents in Panama. Like what? You can build your community today. You do not have to wait until you get anywhere. And that is an amazing blessing. I wish that I had that. But what I'm grateful for that we did have was my husband played American football. So we had a football team of support, which was so helpful and so wonderful, and relationships that we still have now. So I just want to encourage you with that. And then also, like I've mentioned before, to sell everything that you own before you really are moving abroad. Do not keep crap in the US. You don't need it, you don't want it. And once you've been abroad for 5 years, you won't even know what's in those boxes. Okay. But what it also can do is it can help give you some coins. Sell your sofa for $200. That's 200 for Frolic and festivals. So, sell whatever you can, really prioritize experiences over things. That also will help you kind of build up that financial support and that financial foundation that you need to help you feel better. You want to build memories. That is really what this is about, building a life of freedom, memories, ability, options, opportunities. We are moving abroad to live our best life. Okay. So just really prioritizing those, I would recommend that. Now, what is the moral of this story? The moral of this story is moving abroad is amazing, but it can also be expensive. So sometimes you really want to try to um, do your homework, plan for the unexpected, and also give yourself some grace. You're not going to know everything. Unless you're moving somewhere where you've been there lots and lots and lots of times, you're not going to know. So give yourself some grace and some wiggle room and some extra budget room so that when something comes up that you don't know, you're prepared for it. So for example, when we had to get our driver's licenses, we got a car. And then we're like, okay, I read that you can use your US license for 6 months. We got a letter in the mail, 6 months. This is Germany. 6 months on the dot. The letter was in the mail saying you can no longer drive with your US license. So come on and get this for a shine, okay? Which is the German driver's license. But what we did not know at that time is we handed them our North Carolina license because we were moving from North Carolina. So had we handed them our Virginia driver's licenses, because my husband's from Virginia, we've lived in Virginia for years. Had we handed them our Virginia driver's license, they would have put a nice German license right in our hands. But we did not know that. So we handed them our North Carolina license. And what that meant was that we had to pay 600 euro in order to take the German driving test. Or we continue with public transportation and let our car sit in the driveway, which we did. We did that for months because I was like, what's not about to happen? So we ended up having to take the driving test. We had to study for a driving test in these good 30s of years of old. I was like, whew, it's been a long time since I took a driving test, okay? You had to know how many centimeters you're gonna be parked away from the curb. First of all, how big is a centimeter? Okay? So there's that. But that was definitely a 600 euro unexpected expense. So things are gonna happen. You're not gonna know. Show yourself some grace. But just do your homework, do your best. You have lots of tools to help you in 2025. So, and it is okay to make mistakes. I have made plenty of them, and I hope that you have learned from the mistakes that I have made. But if you are preparing for a move abroad, please take time to really sit down, think about where you are moving, realistic costs, use Numbeo, use a calculator, budget for the life you really would like to live. And I'd love to hear about it. So if you want to share it, please follow me. Please like, subscribe to the podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Your Best Life Abroad. But that's it. That's all I have for you today on this episode of Best Life Abroad, Not Your Average Travel Podcast. So if you are ready to make this move abroad real, please know that I'm here to help you. So go to my website, www.yourbestlifeabroad.com, and click on Work with Me. Then you want to go ahead and say, I am ready to move abroad, and let's find a time for us to connect. Okay, I'd be happy to help you. I'm so excited about your journey, and I cannot wait to hear about it. So that's all for us today. Go ahead, y'all. First, figure out where you want to move. Second, how do you want to live in that place? Third, get that budget going. Okay, you already have your 3 pieces of homework for today. So we'll be checking it next week. All right, y'all be blessed and have a good one. Bye.